So Destiny 2's Witch Queen is the result of many years of build-up teasing Savathun, the Witch Queen, ever since the Taken King, and maybe even before that, actually, if I recall. It's been about 5 or 6 years of build-up for Savathun, and we finally get to kind of dive into her story. What's going on with the Witch Queen, Savathun? What's the lore behind all that? So welcome back, my friends. This is going to be my spoiler-free review of the Destiny 2 Witch Queen campaign. Now, this is not going into all the additional content that is part of this expansion. This is only going to focus solely on the campaign portion. So if you're new to Destiny or you haven't been around for a very long time, basically the way it works is every year they release a brand new large campaign, and that campaign, that expansion rather, includes a larger story. Throughout the year with their seasonal stuff, they have kind of smaller stories that they tease and they build up into whatever's coming in a kind of subsequent year, the following big expansion. And so last year's expansion was called Beyond Light, and that introduced some new story elements, and then from there they started kind of unraveling this other story and kind of inching their way towards this expansion until finally in the final season of Beyond Light that we had for the past 6 months, we got some interesting kind of small story elements that started to unravel leading up to the Witch Queen until finally we got that climax. Now here's the thing though, as much as the Witch Queen has been kind of built up towards for many years now, the Witch Queen is definitely not the climax of the Destiny story, and certainly not this saga. Now, Bungie obviously mentioned previously, actually recently, about a year ago, that the Witch Queen was going to be the first of 3 final expansions for this saga, not for Destiny, period. They're going to have some other stuff, a brand new saga, if you will, after the 3 expansions. So the first one is the Witch Queen, the second one is called Lightfall, and the final one is going to be called the Final Shape. Now, from my experience through the Witch Queen, it really did feel like that kind of beginning of the end kind of feel. And again, I don't mean the beginning of the end of Destiny, I mean the beginning of the end of this saga that we've been experiencing ever since Destiny's initial, release. What was it, 2014 was it? A while back. Now, this whole review is actually just off the top of my head and unscripted because I just wanted to make this a little bit more down to earth and a little bit more raw, if you will. Again, I'm going to do my very best to avoid any kind of spoilers. I don't want to spoil the story for you, but I do want to discuss the fact that this campaign was an amazing experience. Now, if you've experienced Destiny campaigns in the past, you kind of got the gist of what's going on, right? You got your campaign missions, right? You got your new power levels that you're going to be working towards, which is just kind of part of the overall expansion, not particularly or specifically to the actual campaign itself, but there's going to be certain times where the next campaign mission is going to be a little bit of a higher power level, so you're going to want to do some side stuff, whether you're going into the Crucible or Gambit or maybe some strikes or whatever else, maybe some public events in the new area and all that good stuff. Now, I will say the Throne World, which is the new location in Destiny 2 Witch Queen expansion, in and of itself is a really great world. It's a very mystical, kind of magical, kind of very fantasy-like world. Now, obviously, Destiny in and of itself is a fantasy kind of style game. There's a lot of fantasy elements to this game, but the Throne World in and of itself, it's very ominous. Again, I'm trying to avoid some spoilers because there's a lot of things you're going to experience through the story that'll explain what's going on with this world, but it's a very ominous world and it's really nice to look at. It has kind of a green aesthetic overall, and there's some interesting things that are lurking around this world. It seems like it's a pretty sizable, substantial kind of world to explore, split up into 3 main sections, obviously connected with, pathways and whatnot, some new lost sectors that add some, kind of new elements to them and whatnot as well. So that's kind of going outside of the campaign a little bit, but the Throne World is part of, what introduces the campaign, which is Savathun's kind of area, her place of residence, if you will, right? And the story takes some pretty crazy turns. Again, really trying to avoid as many spoilers as I can, but as you progress, you're obviously starting the game, and there's the whole threat of Savathun, right? Savathun's Throne World gets introduced. I'm not going to explain how, but basically gets revealed, and you have to make your way over there, and that's where the story really starts to unfold. You start to see that there's some mysteries going on here, some new characters introduced that you're not sure are they good or bad, and obviously some other characters that for sure what side they're on. or maybe even then you might even still question it, because everything is just deception with Savathun. Savathun is basically the character who is the master of deception, the master of lies, the master of trickery. That is what she does. So you're constantly questioning in and of itself everything throughout anything. I mean, I'm talking about the environments, I'm talking about the enemies, I'm talking about the story, things you think you have answers to, but at the end of the day, you're not even really sure if you do have answers to. And sometimes the things you think that are answered are actually not correct, and you find out there's this other big plot twist. Everything just feels like you don't know what's real. Basically, you don't know what's real. You question everything, which makes for a really cool story experience. Now, the campaign itself was split up into technically 7 missions, but there is one mission that you have to do, which includes doing a strike. Now, strikes are not typically a mission in and of themselves, but normally the Destiny campaigns throw in, you have to do with this strike in the middle there, and there's some specific story elements that will normally be part of that, initial first time doing that strike. And so technically there's like 8-ish missions. So it took me about 6 hours to kind of go through it. That's not including the time that I spent though in between, trying to do other stuff, in-world activities, public events, Crucible, whatever else to kind of power myself up a little bit more. If you include that into it, then it's about an 8-hour experience to get through from, the beginning of the campaign to the end of the campaign. Now, some really crazy story elements that were unraveling, like I said, with Savathun. If you don't know the whole thing with Savathun and, Savathun's family, well, Oryx, which was the Taken King, is related to Savathun. And so we got some story elements in there as well that you'll probably, unravel and dabble in. I'm not going to get too much into that either. Beyond that, we of course have some other backstory regarding Savathun that is going to be very, very intriguing for any Destiny fan and even a newcomer. I think even someone who maybe doesn't know the backstory of Destiny, although that really helps with this experience, I think even a newcomer will be definitely intrigued and very invested in what's going on in this world. Honestly, I think that anybody who has any kind of remote interest in getting into Destiny or back into Destiny, I think the Witch Queen is the perfect expansion for someone to get back into it, just even based on the story and the campaign itself. Now, obviously I haven't completed the rest of the content, and of course, that's not what this specific review is about, because we're talking about the campaign. But from what I've seen so far, the expansion adds a lot of great stuff. Weapon crafting, for example, which is a huge new thing to Destiny's universe. Now, let's talk about the gameplay mechanics first of all. There's new mechanics, obviously. We know from the trailer, so this is not a spoiler, that Savathun is using the light, right? So Savathun is giving ghosts somehow to these enemies, that the Hive, that you then have to basically destroy their ghosts. Otherwise, they respawn, which can be very annoying, but in a good way. It's a good kind of gameplay mechanic, but it can be very annoying if you miss, going to crush that ghost. Because if you don't, then, the way basically that Destiny works is the way Guardians revive is through the ghost, which use the light. So Savathun has found a way to steal the light. Again, this is all stuff that has been out there to the public already, no spoilers. So the question is, how is Savathun stealing the light? And when you find out exactly what's going on, it is going to leave so many more questions while still answering a lot of things. It's one of those campaigns, and this is just how the Destiny universe is, right? There's no kind of conclusion at the end of it. It's the conclusion of this chapter, but it's, like I said, the beginning of a bigger threat that's coming. And the way that this campaign ends, it has this moment. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it has a very kind of, think about like the Marvel Cinematic Universe when they were kind of, leading up to the big threat of Thanos and that kind of climax. It's kind of that kind of moment, right? Where they were teasing Thanos, they were teasing this kind of bigger threat that was coming, that was lurking, where it's like you thought, for example, in Age of Ultron, you thought Ultron was the big threat, but there was a much bigger threat coming. It's kind of like one of those elements, right? Again, I don't want to spoil it too much. Again, anyone who's really invested into the Destiny lore and the Destiny story and universe already knows that something is coming. Obviously, there's something. I mean, Savathun is definitely not the biggest, enemy out there, but the way that they teased it really gave you that kind of I guess, chilling feeling. I mean, I got chills. I got chills when I seen the very last cutscene, and it set up what's going to come next perfectly. What's going to be coming in the future expansions, the last 2 expansions of this saga. And all I can say without spoiling it is when you see this one particular cutscene, if you are a Destiny fan, you are going to lose your freaking minds. Like, you will actually have your minds blown. I mean, if you don't, then I don't know. I'd be very surprised. But to me, it was one of those kind of moments. It was one of those moments where you're like, you're just locked in. You're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. The direction that this campaign is heading into and this story is absolutely insane. I never even dreamed of it going this deep. I mean, with the Witch Queen campaign, they have taken the lore and story, which was already immensely deep, and they somehow have deepened it to a level beyond my wildest dreams and expectations. I am so excited about what's going to be coming next. Obviously, we're focusing on the Witch Queen with this review, but that's kind of part of it, right? Is these expansions, as much as they tell their own story, they're also leading up to an even bigger story and the next story, which is building and building and building to the culmination of this saga, right? The Light and Darkness saga as we know it, right? So again, after these next 2 expansions that are supposed to come out in the next 2 years, Destiny's not done. There's going to be more to it, but we're going to at least find out what kind of ties the bow on all the story that's been building up. And as much as, like I said, the story's been building up to Savathûn, there's an even bigger threat lurking at our door that is, again, beyond our wildest expectations and dreams. And I just think that the story, the campaign elements of this campaign, the Witch Queen, really was something special. Again, it felt very fantasy-like, mystical, like a medieval castle kind of vibe, you know what I mean? It was really interesting, the vibe that they kind of took. There was some kind of, not, you know, blatantly horror kind of elements, but kind of maybe spookier, I guess would be the word, ominous kind of elements that really felt like something unique that we didn't really see before in the Destiny universe. And to me, Destiny just, they're doing great. Bungie's doing great with Destiny. It just keeps getting better and better and better, more intriguing, and it's just making the players more invested as time goes on. And I really think the Witch Queen nailed it on the head. I think as far as story and campaign alone, I think it might be very well my favorite Destiny campaign to date, which is saying something because I've been around since the Destiny Alpha. Previously, I probably would have said the Taken King was my favorite, which is kind of ironic considering, you know, the relation between the Taken King and the Witch Queen. But I mean, it's crazy, guys. You really got to play this for yourselves. Even if you never played Destiny in your life, you might, you know, not understand the backstory. There's plenty of, you know, videos out there to catch you up. But this is a truly amazing experience for the Destiny fan as well as the newcomer. And overall, I would give this campaign, just the story alone, the campaign alone, from my experience, I think it's a solid 9.8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. I had some really kind of, you know, freak out moments where I was just really excited, and it was truly spectacular. The narrative team absolutely nailed it, and everybody else nailed it as well, from, you know, the mechanics, the gameplay elements, to the visuals. It's truly visually intriguing and just, you know, just wow. One of those wow moments when you look around, you know, this world and you're like, this world's crazy and everything that's going on. It's nuts. So as a final note, I'll say that I am very, very excited and highly anticipating the raid. I think the raid itself is actually going to tease some more of what's coming, the big threat that I said that's imminent, that's lurking at our doorsteps that we're not expecting. I think the raid's going to unravel a little bit more of that and kind of tease a little bit more in that direction, with also introducing, you know, new gameplay mechanics and other things like that as well. So I will be playing the raid here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, pretty exciting stuff on the horizon. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of make this quick review on Destiny 2's Witch Queen campaign. As a long-term Destiny fan, I wanted to bring you guys kind of a little bit of a looser review, discussing it without spoilers, because I really enjoyed my time with it. If you guys want to check out my whole playthrough, it's up on the channel by the time you guys see this. Let me know if you're playing through the Witch Queen, and if you have, what do you think of the campaign if you've beaten it? Again, try to keep away from the spoilers in the comments for anyone, you know, who hasn't finished it yet. But, you know, being vague, what did you think about it? What would you rate it personally? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Again, at the end of the day, like I always say, this is just one gamer's perspective, one gamer's experience, which can vary obviously from person to person. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys soon in another one. Till then, my friends, game on, and thanks for watching.